Some people don't realize they weren't picking a fight. They were signing their own downfall, because trying to crush someone built from fire only teaches them how easily smoke collapses. My dear chosen ones, let's talk, because the flames you rose from are still burning in the places your enemies thought they left untouched. And today, the idiom writes itself. Making an enemy out of you was the moment they bit off more than they could ever chew. They thought they were playing a small game. They didn't know you were the whole battlefield. They thought turning you into a target would be their victory lap, but all they did was walk right into the storm they stirred. They poked at your peace like it was harmless. They threw shade like you couldn't see the patterns. They laughed at your hurt, whispered lies, and treated your pain like background noise. But chosen one, look at them now. The same hands that tried to pull you down are slipping on the very rope they used to tie you up. They didn't know you were the one person their ego couldn't afford to gamble with. Let's start this the right way. Before we go any further, like this video, subscribe, and drop 77 in the comments if you know this message is your confirmation. Every interaction pushes this message deeper, so more chosen ones can find their strength. You're not just watching, you're activating. Now listen closely, because I'm talking directly to you, the one who was underestimated, misunderstood, and misjudged. The one who was labeled the villain simply because your light exposed the insecurities they didn't want anyone to see. My dear chosen one, they never expected you to rise the way you did. They didn't know their betrayal would become your blueprint. They didn't know their lies would become your liberation. They didn't know that trying to bury you would only help you realize you were a seed. They thought you were fragile because you were quiet. They mistook your compassion for softness, your empathy for weakness, your patience for permission. They confused your silence with surrender, but what they didn't know was that you were observing, learning, evolving. They didn't realize they were sharpening you with every move. And you, chosen one, you questioned yourself. You asked if maybe you were the problem. You wondered if maybe you were overreacting. You doubted your strength, your intuition, your worth. You thought, why me? Why do people try to dim my light? Let me answer that for you once and for all, because your presence disrupts anything built on insecurity, because your energy forces people to confront their own shadows, because your very existence challenges their comfort zone. Your enemies didn't want to destroy you, they wanted to distract you. They wanted to keep you doubting yourself so you'd never wake up to the power they already saw in you. That's why they talked behind your back, why they twisted your name, why they tried to isolate you. But they miscalculated something crucial. You weren't alone. You were aligned. And alignment is a protection they never saw coming. Before we move forward, chosen one, if this message is speaking directly to your spirit and you can feel it hitting places silence once held, pause for a moment and support this mission. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below so we know you're here and rising. Your engagement isn't just numbers. It fuels this movement, keeps this message alive, and allows us to continue creating powerful, life-changing, mindset-shifting content for warriors just like you. When you interact, you're not only investing in yourself, you're helping other chosen ones find their breakthrough. Let's build this energy together. Now everything they built against you is collapsing in their hands. The lies they told, falling apart. The gossip they spread, backfiring. The connections they tried to poison, unraveling right in front of them. And they're sitting there wondering why everything feels heavy, why nothing is going right, why the chaos they once cheered for is now knocking at their own door. My dear chosen one, that's not coincidence, that's consequence. They're spiraling, they're anxious, they're restless, they're overthinking, and not because of what you did, but because of what they did to you. They wanted to see you break, but now they're watching you glow. They wanted you defeated, but now you're walking taller. They wanted you forgotten, but now your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did. And here's the part that cuts them the deepest. You didn't retaliate. You didn't expose them. You didn't chase answers. You didn't beg for clarity. You simply detached. You chose yourself. You stepped into your power. And that silence, oh chosen one, that silence has become the loudest truth they've ever heard. They feared your rise long before you ever believed in it. They feared your strength long before you recognized it. They feared your voice long before you spoke it. They feared your healing long before you even knew you were wounded. That's why they treated you the way they did. But now the tables have turned and the karmic scale is swinging with full force. So if you know they made the biggest mistake of their life by turning you into their enemy, drop 77 in the comments right now, not out of spite, but out of acknowledgement, out of awakening, out of reclaiming what was always yours. Chosen one, this isn't just an intro. This is the wake-up call they hoped you'd never hear. And trust me, we're only getting started. Chosen one, before we go any deeper into this message, pause and anchor yourself right here with us. If this title already feels like a mirror to your story, making an enemy out of you will go down in history as their biggest mistake. Karma is wreaking havoc. Then show that you're not just watching, you're aligning. Tap like, hit subscribe, and drop 77 in the comments to signal that you're stepping into your next chapter with clarity and confidence. Your support keeps this powerful, raw, transformation-fueling content alive. Stay right here, because what comes next will feel like your life being read out loud. Number 1. They didn't create an enemy. They activated their own downfall. They didn't create an opponent. They accidentally built the reminder of their own downfall. Some people don't realize they aren't fighting you. They're fighting their own reflection in the mirror you became. My dear chosen ones, let's pull the curtain back on the truth they swore you would never speak. When they tried to turn you into an enemy, they didn't realize they were constructing a legacy, not of your destruction, but of their own unforgettable mistake. They thought they were simply removing you, silencing you, or outsmarting you. But instead, they documented their own downfall, like an artist, unaware they were painting their own exit scene. They thought they were bruising your character, but they were sculpting a monument that now follows them like a shadow that never learned how to sleep. They assumed you were an easy target, someone whose silence meant weakness, whose empathy meant gullibility, or whose peace meant powerlessness. They read your calm like it was vulnerability, not realizing calmness is what a storm looks like right before it forms. They tried to bruise your reputation, but ended up bruising their destiny. They thought they were planting damage, but they didn't know they were planting consequences. Chosen one, they didn't understand that some people don't crumble, they convert. You weren't someone they could break and walk away from. You were the type who turns every hit into heat, every wound into wisdom, every betrayal into blueprint. They played with your name like it was a toy, but now they whisper it like a warning. Their actions were not harmless, accidental, or misunderstood. They were sharpened, intentional, calculated. They manipulated narratives, they performed innocence, they smiled while knowing exactly what they were doing. And in the end, the story boomeranged back to them. They didn't just cause drama, they activated karma. They didn't ignite a small spark, they lit a fuse in a room full of consequences. And now the results are showing. Look at them, chosen one. Not with revenge, not with ego, but with awareness. Their life is glitching like a faulty system overloaded with lies it can no longer manage. Opportunities closing, relationships shifting, conversations no longer echoing the same applause. Because energy does not disappear, it circulates, evolves, and returns home with a message. And you felt it, didn't you? that internal tension, that unexplainable heaviness, that whisper that said, something is not right. You may have questioned yourself, trying to convince your mind to ignore what your intuition screamed. You tried to rationalize their behavior, excuse their patterns, or soften reality because you had a humane heart. But chosen one, the sensitivity you once doubted was actually your superpower. Your awareness wasn't paranoia, it was recognition. You weren't overreacting, you were reading the room before others even noticed the smoke. They labeled you unstable to keep their mask steady. They painted you dramatic so they could hide their own performance. They needed someone to absorb blame while they escaped accountability, so they pinned the villain badge on you like a sticker they thought would stick forever. But truth does not need a microphone. It echoes, and the louder the lie, the heavier the truth pushes back. Now, look what's happening. The same voices that once shouted are silent. The same people who joked are restless. The same ones who paraded confidence are second-guessing every move. When a lie becomes heavy, silence becomes punishment. They can't clap it away, laugh it away, or distraction post it away. This is not a social storm. This is not gossip fatigue. This is not coincidence. This is energetic gravity doing its job. They built a trap certain you would trip into, not realizing they placed it on ground already cracking beneath them. They thought they were in control, but when your value is real, every false attack becomes a boomerang, not instantly, but inevitably. And you, chosen one, look at yourself. You didn't just survive, you upgraded. You didn't just heal, you expanded. You didn't just return, you returned wiser. Every insult became fuel. Every betrayal improved your vision. Every setback taught you precision. Every loss refined your standards. They expected you to fall apart, not transform. They thought they were burying you, not planting you. They never imagined you would come back smarter, calmer, stronger, and more self-aligned than ever. They didn't expect you to turn silence into strategy or pain into power. They didn't anticipate that the version of you they tried to break would evolve into the version they now fear to face. Chosen one, your very existence is proof that some people don't lose battles, they lose access. And that is the downfall that hurts the most. Not the argument, not the exposure, not the revenge. The absence, the realization that they didn't just lose someone, they lost the chance to ever stand beside your evolution. So understand this. They didn't create your failure story. They authored their own cautionary tale. And every time they walk through their own life, a whisper follows. I shouldn't have tried to destroy someone who was built to rise. Chosen ones, stay grounded. This is just chapter 1. And chapter 2 hits even harder. Number 2, their secret obsession has now become the reason their world is crashing. They didn't just fixate on you, they turned their own obsession into the reason they're falling apart. You, my dear chosen one, were never just someone they casually observed. You were the topic they couldn't stop circling, the file they kept reopening, the story they kept rewriting even when no one asked for an update. They didn't just watch you, they studied you. Your presence became their silent addiction. Your progress became their unspoken threat, and your existence became the mirror they struggled to look into without flinching. They wanted so badly to act unfazed, to pretend you were irrelevant, to play cool while convincing themselves they didn't care. Yet every move you made rewired their emotions. Every achievement you touched rattled something inside them, and every step forward you took reminded them of how stuck they truly were. They said you didn't matter, but their focus gave them away. They said you were unimportant, but their actions screamed the opposite. They claimed they moved on, yet somehow you became the main character in conversations that weren't even about you. While you spent nights rebuilding your spirit, they spent nights refreshing your progress. While you faced your wounds head-on, they dug deeper into denial. While you were learning how to rise, they were rehearsing ways to ensure you didn't. But here's the irony: their obsession didn't stop you, it strengthened you. Every attempt to hinder your path pushed you further into alignment. Every moment they doubted you became a new reason for you to grow. They were watching, but they didn't realize they were watching you transform. They never understood that chosen ones don't collapse under pressure. They crystallize. The fire they hoped would turn you to ash became the heat that molded you into something unbreakable. They misread your silence and your stillness. They didn't realize silence is where chosen ones reload, not retreat. They thought your pause was your finale, unaware it was your metamorphosis. They thought your sadness was evidence of defeat, not the soil where your next chapter was germinating. They thought their manipulation would make you lose yourself, not discover who you truly were. And now, look at the result. You evolved while they eroded. Their obsession eventually became their self-destruction, because no one can grow while stalking someone else's journey. They forgot their own goals, abandoned their own growth, and paused their own life because watching you became more important than building themselves. They treated you like a threat, and now that mindset has turned into their downfall. They sabotaged their own potential by putting you at the center of everything they did, even when you didn't ask, didn't compete, and didn't care. They tried to copy your energy without understanding your endurance. They tried to mimic your steps without walking through your storms. They envied your healing without confronting their wounds. They wanted your strength without facing your battles, and now they're frozen in the consequences of the shortcuts they attempted. Chosen one, you didn't need revenge. Your evolution became it. You didn't need to scream, expose, or fight. Your progress became louder than any reaction you could have given. They expected you to strike back, but instead, you outgrew war. Nothing hits harder than someone finally realizing the person they tried to destroy has become the blueprint they now desperately wish they could follow. They can't unsee your rise, and they can't undo their choices. Their collapse isn't because you harmed them, it's because they poured so much energy into hoping for your downfall that they abandoned the climb they were supposed to make for themselves. And yes, chosen one, there were moments where their obsession affected you. They made you doubt your worth, question your path, and internalize their projections. They made you ask, why do they hate me? And what did I do wrong? But now you finally understand. Their issue wasn't with your actions, it was with your existence. You triggered what they refused to address. Your authenticity exposed their imitation. Your healing highlighted their avoidance. Your courage mocked their comfort zone. They weren't at war with you. They were at war with what you represented. Growth they weren't willing to pursue. Now, their world is glitching like faulty code because there's no foundation beneath them. They can't stop thinking about you, not because they love or admire you, but because your evolution proves what they could have been if they chose elevation over envy. They are haunted not by your presence, but by the realization that your success invalidates the narrative they built about you. They tried to make you the example of failure, and now they're forced to watch you become the case study of resilience. So, chosen one, stop wondering whether your journey matters. It does. Stop asking if they are still watching. They are. Stop doubting whether your growth is powerful. It's shaking everything they built. They tried to turn you into a cautionary tale. Instead, you became the revelation that terrifies their comfort. You were never their enemy. You were their awakening. And now they are collapsing under the weight of the truth you never had to speak. Number 3. They labeled you unstable. Now they're losing sleep over your silence. They mocked your mind. Now they're prisoners of their own thoughts. They called you crazy, chosen one, but now they lie awake at night, refreshing screens, stalking shadows, checking signs, and searching for evidence that you've finally moved on. Not because they care, but because the thought of you outgrowing what they tried to bury you in keeps clawing at their peace. They once found entertainment in your tears, comedy in your confusion, and confidence in your silence. The moment you reacted to their manipulation, they pointed fingers with prepared scripts, twisting your hurt into a spectacle to protect their image. They didn't just lie about you. They rehearsed it like a performance, turning your emotional responses into proof for their fabricated reality. Instead of apologizing, they doubled down, curated a villain version of you, and invited an audience to applaud their stage play. But the curtains have fallen now, and the only applause they hear is the sound of their own regrets echoing back at them. You were never crazy. You were surrounded by people who designed chaos and then blamed you for drowning in it. They wanted to fracture your reality so they could preserve their own illusion. They knew if you ever stood up for yourself, even with a tremble in your voice, their mask would slip. So they rushed to label you unstable before anyone could notice the manipulation behind their smile. They poked, provoked, gaslit, and twisted your reactions into rehearsed proof. See, look how emotional they are. They weaponized your vulnerability because they feared your clarity. They contaminated the narrative first, not because you were the danger, but because you were the truth. And truth is always the biggest threat to liars. And chosen one, do you remember those nights? The nights when your mind spiraled because nothing aligned with what you were feeling? When their actions didn't match their words, but somehow you ended up apologizing? When you started to question your own memory, your own perception, and your own worth? That wasn't weakness. That was psychological warfare disguised as love, friendship, family, or loyalty. While they quietly pulled strings and enjoyed the spectacle, you tried to preserve peace, even as your spirit trembled under pressure. You were holding your breath in a room filled with toxic air and then blamed for gasping. But now something they never expected has happened. You stopped explaining yourself. And that, chosen one, is the moment their entire narrative began to crumble. They never feared your anger. They feared your silence. They depended on your emotional responses to keep their lies alive. Every tear, every attempt to defend yourself, every conversation you begged to have was oxygen to their performance. You walking away, without explanation, without closure, without warning, suffocated their story. They needed you reacting. They didn't know what to do when you began healing. Now they're the ones losing sleep. They stalk your presence like a ghost that refuses to disappear. They scroll not to admire, but to compare. They listen not to celebrate, but to panic. They ask about you not from curiosity, but from fear. The silence you now hold has become the loudest noise they hear. What used to be their proof is now their paranoia. The same narrative they built now stands as evidence against them, and the same people they once convinced are quietly starting to notice the cracks. Lies require constant maintenance, and they're running out of energy. While you heal, evolve, and level up into the strongest version of yourself, they're replaying memories like broken film reels, desperately trying to locate the moment they lost control. They watch from a distance, hoping you're still wounded, because if you're healed, then the truth is fully exposed. They can change their story, but they can't change the outcome. You didn't collapse, you ascended. They didn't break you, they broke their own credibility. And now the karmic spotlight is on them, revealing everything they tried to hide while you shine without trying. So chosen one, let this be your reminder. Stop revisiting pain to fact-check their lies. Stop analyzing your reactions through the lens of people who wanted you confused. Stop labeling your depth as damage just because shallow people couldn't understand it. What you felt was real. What they did was intentional. And what is happening now is return, not revenge. You are not dramatic. You are aware. You are not unstable. You are intuitive. You are not broken. You are rebuilt. And the silence they once mocked has become the loudest truth they will ever hear. Let them scroll. Let them wonder. Let them lose sleep. You moved on, and that is the ending they never prepared for. Number 4. The ones who vanished are now starving for access to your energy. The same betrayers are now scrambling just to feel the warmth of what they once mocked. It's almost poetic, chosen one. The same people who acted like you were nothing are now quietly wishing they could be near you again, even if only for a passing second. They once smirked while you were breaking, laughed while you were hurting, and called your name in rooms where their ego needed an audience. They thought abandoning you would crush you, that ignoring you would erase you, that betraying you would reduce you. But instead, it reduced them. They believed ghosting you meant you'd be chasing them forever, not realizing that their absence would become the very doorway that led you back to yourself. And now, here they stand, watching your elevation like a movie they no longer have a ticket to. Every message they send now sits unread, not out of bitterness, but because your spirit is too expensive for anyone who once tried to bargain with your worth. Once upon a time, chosen one, you would have bent over backwards just to keep certain people warm, even while you were shivering inside your own storm. You used to apologize just to make peace, even when you were the one left bleeding. You used to overextend yourself to help them feel wanted, even when they couldn't offer you the bare minimum of respect, empathy, or honesty. Now look how the tables turned without you ever flipping one. They walked away thinking you would collapse, but your glow-up became the chapter they never saw coming. They thought you'd be easy to replace, but they quickly learned that you weren't an option. You were the standard. Now, they're surrounded by people who look social but feel soulless, people who laugh without meaning it, people who clap without caring, and people who smile but wouldn't lift a finger if the world broke beneath their feet. They traded authenticity for attention, depth for distraction, loyalty for image, and only now do they realize that attention doesn't comfort, validation doesn't heal, and crowds don't replace connection. They didn't know your presence was the balance that kept their chaos from swallowing them whole. They didn't realize you weren't just in their life, you were upgrading their life. Chosen one, your energy was never average, and they're only discovering that now. You didn't just enter lives, you shifted them. Your presence was a reset button, a mirror, a silent transformation. You sparked clarity, direction, and accountability without even trying. And that terrified them, because real love, real loyalty, and real alignment require honesty. And honesty burns people made of masks. So they blamed you for the truth they weren't brave enough to face. They ran because you saw too much. They talked because they feared your silence. They tried to bury you because you reminded them of everything they were afraid to become. And do you want to know what real karma looks like, chosen one? It's not destruction, it's realization. It's that moment when they finally understand what they lost, not because you proved anything, but because now they can't find that feeling anywhere else. Karma is them scrolling through your life, seeing peace they no longer have access to. Karma is watching you rise while their connections expire. Karma is knowing you healed while they still can't explain why nothing feels fulfilling anymore. Now they circle around your life like moths whispering near the flame they once laughed at, trying to figure out how you're still glowing after what they did. They can't reach you anymore, not because you're cold, but because you've evolved beyond their emotional pay grade. You're not speaking their language, and they never learned yours. You're moving like chess while they're still bragging about checkers. You became unpredictable, unbothered, unavailable, and unstoppable, and that intimidates them more than your pain ever did. And now, the harsh truth they never expected has arrived. You were never replaceable, only underestimated. They downgraded from meaning to distraction, from substance to noise, from connection to convenience. You weren't just someone in their life. You were the rare reflection of who they could have become if they were brave enough to grow. And when they shattered that reflection, they shattered their own possibility. So let them watch, let them replay, let them lurk silently while acting unbothered publicly. Their punishment is being a spectator in a life they were once invited to build. Their regret is permanent, not because you're cruel, but because you finally understood your value. And once a chosen one understands their worth, access is no longer a privilege. It becomes a memory. Number 5. They tried to destroy you. Instead, you became the blueprint they can't copy. They thought they could break you, but they accidentally made you the blueprint for an unrepeatable evolution. Chosen one, let's make something painfully clear. What they thought would be your ending became the very formula for your rise. They believed they were tearing you apart piece by piece, when in reality they were handing you every single ingredient needed to build a version of yourself that even you didn't know existed. They thought their attacks were demolishing you, but every insult, every false rumor, every cold shoulder, every betrayal, every door slammed in your face became the framework, the blueprint, the architecture of a new identity they could never duplicate, never outrun, and never unsee. They wanted to hurt you, but they ended up training you. They wanted to weaken you, but they unintentionally prepared you. They wanted you broken, but they accidentally engineered the upgrade of your lifetime. You didn't rise because it was easy, you rose because you had no other choice. And that's exactly why your strength is different. You weren't encouraged into greatness, you were forced into it. Pressure wasn't your enemy, it was your initiation. They don't understand how you're still standing, because truthfully, by their calculations, you shouldn't be here. But you are. Not by luck, not by accident, not by the validation of others, but because you refused to let pain be a period. You turned it into a comma, then into a chapter, and now into a story that refuses to fade. They wanted you emotional, reactive, defensive, because that would have validated their narrative. They wanted you to snap, cry publicly, crumble, and lose yourself in bitterness, so they could say, "See, we were right about them." But chosen one, instead of reacting, you learned to observe. Instead of shouting, you learned to move in silence. Instead of explaining, you learned to let outcomes speak. Your transformation became your revenge, your peace became your clapback, and your silence became the loudest message they never wanted to hear. The moment you stopped fighting for approval was the moment you accidentally won the war they started. You realized something they never expected you to figure out. Peace beats performance, healing beats validation, and indifference beats retaliation. When you stopped trying to prove who you were and instead focused on becoming, the power dynamic shifted so drastically they didn't even notice until it was too late. They used to have emotional access, psychological influence, and narrative control. Now they have nothing but memories, assumptions, and regrets. You didn't just walk away, chosen one, you elevated out of their reach. You outgrew their manipulation like shedding skin that no longer fit your evolution. You transformed from someone who internalized pain into someone who recycled it. You became someone whose scars didn't stay wounds. They became maps. They didn't realize that when someone has suffered deeply, their perception sharpens, their instincts strengthen, and their tolerance for games evaporates. You became the version of yourself that can never again be tricked, controlled, or underestimated. And that terrifies them more than losing you ever did. And now, look at the irony. The same observers who once mocked your downfall are silently studying your comeback. They scroll your life with envy disguised as curiosity, trying to decode how you went from broken to unbothered, overlooked to undeniable, hurt to upgraded. They try to mimic your tone, your moves, your healing, your energy. But they can't replicate an identity that was never created for imitation. You didn't learn your power from books, trends, or advice. You learned it from survival, silence, solitude, and self-resurrection. Your wisdom came from nights you couldn't explain, emotions you had to swallow, and battles you had to fight without applause. That's why you walk differently now, not arrogantly, but consciously. You don't need validation, attention, or recognition. You are the evidence. Your existence, your evolution, your calmness, your standards, your emotional discipline, that's the proof. They say you've changed and chosen one. They're right. You changed from someone who questioned their worth into someone who no longer discounts it. From someone desperate to be understood into someone selective about who gets access. From someone who tolerated emotional turbulence into someone who demands internal stability. The twist they never saw coming is that the version of you they tried to eliminate was only the draft. What exists now is the finalized, upgraded, sharpened, aligned edition, the one with vision, boundaries, discernment, and strategy. They thought breaking you would erase you, but all it did was remove the parts of you that were never going to survive your destiny anyway. And chosen one, here's the final truth. You are not just a survivor of what happened. You are the blueprint proving what becomes of someone who refuses to stay broken. They didn't end your story. They authored your legend. Number 6. Their biggest regret was believing you needed them to stand strong. Their biggest regret was believing you needed them. They spent so long convincing themselves that you couldn't survive without them that they never stopped to consider what would happen if you learned you could. Their confidence wasn't built on their own substance. It was built on your loyalty, your effort, your support, your presence, your energy. They mistook your patience as proof that you couldn't leave, not realizing patience is only present where love exists. And once love leaves, patience follows without warning. They didn't see that you were choosing them, not depending on them. And those are two entirely different realities. One is empowerment, the other is illusion. And chosen one, they lived in illusion. They believed their absence would destroy you because they never understood that you were the one quietly holding everything together. You weren't clinging. You were caring. You weren't stuck. You were invested. You weren't desperate. You were loyal. But when loyalty becomes lopsided, even the strongest soul eventually walks away, not out of weakness but out of alignment. And when you finally walked away without slamming doors, without dramatic exits, without screaming or begging, that's when their world split open. Your silence wasn't empty. It was a statement, a final one. They loved having someone who understood them, forgave them, supported them, believed in them, defended them, and stayed with them even when they didn't deserve it. They assumed that because you stayed through storms, you would stay forever. Not realizing chosen ones stay not because they are trapped, but because they have the capacity to love beyond flaws. But when a chosen one realizes their energy is being drained, not valued, their exit is silent, quick, and irreversible. And that's the part they never expected. They didn't expect you to get tired. They didn't expect you to wise up. They didn't expect you to detach. They didn't expect you to be the one who got away. Not because someone else came, but because you chose yourself. The truth revealed itself the moment you pulled your energy back. Suddenly, the attention they were so used to receiving felt cold. The admiration they felt entitled to disappeared. The emotional security blanket they wrapped themselves in vanished. They were never the center. They were orbiting your field. They fed on your reassurance because it made them feel important. But when the reassurance stopped, their insecurity surfaced like a crack spreading through glass. Now they feel the emptiness they once hoped you would drown in. Chosen one, they're not haunted because you needed them. They're haunted because you didn't. You rebuilt your world without asking for their help, without looking for their approval, without waiting for closure, and that is what shattered their arrogance. They told themselves you'd fall apart, but instead you began to glow in ways they didn't know were possible. Your peace became louder than your pain, and because they can no longer access the source of your energy, they're forced to live with the realization that they were never the power you were. Now they try to replace you with distractions, attention, new faces, new conversations, new environments. But everything feels temporary, shallow, and incomplete because once someone has tasted real, artificial becomes flavorless. They stalk your progress, not because they care, but because it threatens everything they told themselves about who you were. They want to know if you're still hurting, if you're still affected, if you're still looking back, not because they deserve to be remembered, but because they hate the idea of being forgotten. And the irony? They once said you needed them, but now they can't stop checking if someone else has taken your place. They once acted like you were replaceable, but now they panic at the idea that you've realized your worth. Watching you thrive without them is a psychological blow they never prepared for. Your growth is the evidence that destroys their script. Your calm is the silence that exposes their noise. Your healing is the spotlight that reveals their cracks. So, chosen one, don't question whether they regret it. Regret became their shadow the day you rose instead of collapsed. The truth is simple. You were never the one who needed saving. You were the one who created stability while they hid behind ego. You weren't the dependent one. You were the foundation. And when a foundation walks away, the building eventually falls. They didn't lose a person. They lost access to the version of themselves that only existed in your presence. And that is a consequence no one can escape, outrun, or replace. You didn't need them. You needed you ... And you finally chose yourself. Number 7, you didn't just heal. You became the warning they'll never forget. Chosen one, let's make something unmistakably clear. What you went through wasn't just survival, it was transformation on a level they never saw coming and still can't comprehend. You didn't crawl out of what they put you through like someone begging for mercy. You didn't limp out of the flames looking for sympathy. You walked through it, head raised, back straight, spirit intact. And while the fire tried to consume you, it ended up polishing you. The ashes they assumed would be your final resting place became the very material you molded into your empire. You became the kind of story people whisper about because you turned disaster into destiny. They thought your silence was fear and your absence was defeat, not realizing silence is where chosen ones reload and absence is where chosen ones evolve. They expected you to come out shattered, but you emerged sharpened, not just with lessons, but as the lesson. They believed abandoning you would destroy you, that removing their presence would remove your progress, that mocking you would reduce your worth, and that replacing you would erase your significance. But the lesson was never meant for you. It was engineered for them. You were the teacher disguised as the target, the awakening disguised as the underdog, the mirror disguised as the misunderstood. They didn't realize that chosen ones don't learn from betrayal. Betrayal learns from them. They thought humiliating you would humble you, but instead it humbled them. They thought you needed their attention, their validation, their energy, or their presence to rise. Instead, losing them activated the version of you that was always meant to surface, the version powered by self-sourced energy, undeniable resilience, and unstoppable clarity. Losing them wasn't your loss, it was your launch. When everything fell apart, you didn't sit in the ruins asking for someone to understand you. You didn't beg for closure. You didn't chase explanations. Instead, you discovered the meaning behind one of the most powerful realizations a chosen one can ever reach. You don't heal by being understood, you heal by understanding yourself. You stopped needing people to validate your pain because you found purpose in it. You stopped replaying what hurt you because you started designing what would elevate you. You shifted from trying to prove something to someone to proving everything to yourself. That's not emotional recovery, that's emotional mastery, and only chosen ones reach that level. Now, your life itself is the full circle moment they never wanted to witness. You became the walking reminder of the truth they tried to bury. Every smile you wear now, every peaceful night you sleep, every silent win you collect, every door that opens for you, it all echoes in their mind like a headline they can't look away from. They didn't just underestimate you, they miscalculated your entire destiny. Not even because they didn't believe in you, but because they assumed they had the power to determine your outcome. What they failed to consider was that chosen ones aren't built by comfort, they're forged in adversity, and nothing they did was strong enough to stop what was already written inside you. They thought you would fade into irrelevance, but instead you flourished into impact. They thought you would crumble, but you built new heights from the rubble. They thought forgetting you would give them peace. But forgetting someone like you is impossible, because chosen ones don't leave memories, they leave marks. Now they walk around with the weight of a truth they can't delete. They didn't just lose you, they lost the chance to ever be aligned with someone who could have elevated their entire story. You, chosen one, are the evidence that no attack can cancel purpose and no betrayal can block alignment. They didn't know that attempting to break you would build your backbone, that turning their back on you would turn you toward your calling, and that their absence would introduce you to your real power source. They tried to script your tragedy, but you rewrote it as transformation. They wanted people to see you as the villain, but history is already framing you as the blueprint, the model of what happens when strength chooses silence and healing chooses evolution. So let them watch from the distance they created. Let them sit with the echoes of the choices they made. Let them wonder what would have happened if they had valued you instead of trying to control you. They wanted you to become bitter, but instead you became better. They expected you to break, but instead you became the lesson that karma couldn't wait to teach. Chosen one, you weren't the warning. You became the whole curriculum. Number 8. Every move was recorded, and now the scales are shifting. When energy keeps receipts and balance comes back for its share. Chosen one, let's unfold this truth slowly, because it hits deeper when you see it from the height you've grown to. While they were busy assuming you were powerless, silent, and defeated, they never realized life itself was documenting every detail like a security camera that never blinks. You didn't have to clap back, expose anyone, seek revenge, force conversations, or beg for accountability, because energy has never needed a courtroom. It simply mirrors. Every tear you held behind closed doors, every night your mind carried weight that wasn't yours, every lie whispered, every betrayal disguised as friendship, every smile hiding intention. Nothing was missed, nothing was ignored, nothing disappeared just because you didn't fight back. There's a balance in this world, chosen one, that runs deeper than karma and stronger than luck. It's not magic, not superstition, not fantasy. It's cause and effect, the law that sits under every decision, every motive, every action. And while they celebrated your hurt, thinking they had escaped consequences, energy was quietly organizing the return shipment. They didn't hear the footsteps because justice doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it walks barefoot until it stands right behind them. They thought silence meant safety. They thought no reaction meant they got away with it. What they didn't know was that silence is where consequences stretch, sharpen, and grow teeth. They lived like illusion was armor, like lies could be furniture, like performance was identity. They laughed while you healed. They cheered while you rebuilt from dust you didn't create. They gathered people like confetti, thinking popularity meant proof. They mistook attention for evidence and gossip for achievement. They thought they were climbing, but they were only climbing higher into denial. And the higher the ego climbs, the harder the fall becomes. Chosen one, people forget. Illusions have expiration dates. And now look, the very mouths that once treated your name like a chew toy are now spoken about with the same disrespect they once aimed at you. The same people who mocked your breakdown are quietly living one. The same energy they used to suffocate you is now wrapping around their days like a fog that won't lift. Confusion, tension, anxiety, paranoia, loss, regret, not because life is cruel, but because you cannot poison someone else's path without tasting the residue on your own. This isn't about revenge. You didn't win because they lost. You won because you refused to turn bitter. You mastered something they didn't even consider. You turned pain into elevation. Your silence wasn't defeat, it was strategy. Your peace wasn't fear, it was wisdom. You learned that responding to chaos is how chaos survives, so you starved it. Every moment you chose healing over retaliation, reflection over reaction, growth over gossip, solitude over noise. You were not being weak, you were investing in your next level. And that's why, chosen one, you're rising without force, without explanation, without apology. You didn't drag anyone down. You simply stopped letting them climb, using your shoulders. The glow they claimed you'd never find is now the very light exposing every mask they ever wore. You didn't paint them as villains. Their choices did. You didn't destroy their reputation. Their behavior did. You didn't tell the world what happened. The results are speaking for you. Now their confidence is cracking because the very crowd they performed for is starting to see inconsistencies. They're losing access, opportunities, people, sleep, stability, and peace. Not because you wished it, but because energy is a boomerang and intentions are signatures. They're starting to connect the dots, and trust me, chosen one, the worst punishment is awareness with no undo button. You didn't need to fight back. You became evidence. You didn't need to expose them. Life replayed every scene. You didn't need closure. They're living in it. And the irony cuts deeper than any insult ever could. The same version of you they tried to destroy became the version they now cannot reach. So, chosen one, don't look back, don't soften the lesson, don't feel guilty for your glow, don't reopen doors for those who proved they only understand access, not value. Some people don't need punishment, they need distance. Some people don't learn through explanation, they learn through experience. And some people aren't meant to return, they were meant to reveal. Stay still, stay elevated. Stay aligned, because real power doesn't chase. It pulls reality into alignment. Number 9, your transformation is crushing the story they built about you. Their ego is breaking under the weight of your glow up, and they can feel every ounce of it like pressure they never prepared for. My dear chosen one, your evolution didn't just shock them, it shattered the illusion they built of you in their minds and in the minds of others. Let's be real. What happened to you wasn't just a glow-up. It was a complete energetic shift, a transformation so loud it echoed without you ever needing to speak. You didn't come back. You rose, and not in the way people casually bounce back after a setback. No. You rose like a phoenix that remembered why it burned, and suddenly everything they ever whispered about you started aging like milk in the sun. Your glow-up wasn't cosmetic, it was cosmic. It wasn't just your looks, your success, or your confidence, it was the undeniable change in your presence, your energy, your standards, your silence, your boundaries, your clarity, your self-respect. The version of you that they tried to break died quietly, and the version that returned didn't come to prove anything. It came to exist unapologetically. They used to say you were too much when really they were operating at not enough. They said you were dramatic, emotional, sensitive, or unstable, not because you were, but because you felt deeply, something they never had the courage to do. And now that same depth has become your crown. Chosen one, look at how the narrative flipped without you lifting a finger. The same people who thought you were done, finished, forgotten, or defeated are now silently analyzing your every move like you're a test they never studied for. They used to label you like they owned your definition, but now they can't even predict your next sentence, let alone your next chapter. Your calmness unnerves them. Your quiet confidence intimidates them. Your healing confuses them. Your growth exposes them. They don't know how to handle someone who mastered what was meant to destroy them. And the most satisfying part? Your glow-up became the storyline they can't escape. Not because you're flaunting it, but because they cannot ignore it. They scroll through your progress, pretending they don't care, but you can feel the tension in the silence they leave behind. They mimic your words, your mindset, your style, your energy, yet never acknowledge the source, because crediting you means confessing their lies. But it shows. Oh, it shows. Jealousy has a way of leaking through the cracks, even when the mouth stays shut. You didn't beg for closure, vengeance, or validation. You built your peace. You crafted a life where their access expired without announcement, and that is the type of glow up that destroys egos faster than any confrontation ever could. They bragged about how they moved on, but life has a way of revealing who truly healed and who simply hid behind performance and distraction. And now that your transformation is visible, their storyline doesn't match the reality others are witnessing, and that inconsistency is crushing their ego like a weight they can't lift. Chosen one, your glow-up did not happen in comfort. It happened in isolation, self-confrontation, emotional surgery, mental rewiring, and internal excavation. You earned the right to walk with quiet, unshakable confidence. You didn't stumble into peace. You fought for it. You didn't find self-worth in someone's approval. You built it from ashes. And now you don't need applause, praise, or validation, because you became the evidence, the walking contradiction to every lie spoken about you. Now the same people who hosted private conversations about your failure can't even speak your name without swallowing regret. They avoid you not because they hate you, but because truth has a face now, and it's yours. You evolved from their storyline into their reminder, the one they never wanted but will forever have. Not out of revenge, but out of reality. You are what happens when someone stops apologizing for existing and starts honoring who they were always meant to be. So let them pretend, let them laugh online, let them post indirect quotes, let them act unfazed, because silence can't hide envy and distance can't hide regret. Their ego is not breaking because you hurt them. It's breaking because you became everything they said you couldn't. And chosen one, that isn't just success, that is poetic justice. And as we close this chapter, chosen one, remember this truth. You didn't just survive what was sent to break you. You evolved into someone they'll never forget. Your growth became the evidence, your peace became the victory, and your silence became the headline. If this message resonated, like this video, subscribe to the channel, drop 77 in the comments to confirm your alignment, and share this with another rising soul who needs the reminder. Your journey isn't over, it's leveling up, and the world is about to witness what real transformation looks like. Stay rising, stay focused, and stay chosen.